12 whole months? That's nutty.
That's crazy, right?
Alright, tweets sent out.
Okay.
Alright. Sup, losers? We're back.
It's been a minute.
And we're talking about 4 completely unrelated movies.
Yep. Well, I mean, they're kind of related, if you like really stretch it. Here's my theory about why all 4 of these movies are in a connected universe.
Hit me with it. No, I want to hear you connect Mad God to Scream 5.
Well, Mad God is the post-apocalyptic universe after in hundreds of years after the other 3.
Alright.
Yeah.
Alright, so for you goobers, we watched 4 horror movies in the past, 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Those being Texas Chainsaw 2022, Scream 5, X, and Mad God, which we watched 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's start with these in the order that we watched.
So putting our best foot forward with the first one, then.
The masterpiece, best movie out of the 4. Really, a modern classic, take on an old classic.
Which is, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, released on Netflix earlier this year. And I'm not convinced this was ever written as a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
I'm convinced that this was never written as a sequel.
Yeah, it in no way makes sense or connects to any of the other movies besides the name recognition of Leatherface and Sally Hardesty, who herself feels incredibly tacked on to profit off of the success of Halloween 2018 and the return of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. But everything else is just so removed.
Yeah, I could have sworn, unless I'm now living in a parallel universe, that when this movie was announced, it was a remake that took place in the 80s.
Oh my god, was it?
That's how I remember it, but I also remember hearing about another remake and then not caring. Like, I didn't follow the development of this movie. I wasn't like, oh, did they post another trailer?
The development of this movie was kind of weird. It came out after Lionsgate lost the rights to the franchise after Leatherface because they didn't put out a movie in time to keep the rights. So Legendary took the rights and decided to reboot the series. And it kind of originally who is it? Ryan and Andy Tohill were the directors of this movie. But they got replaced with David Blue Garcia because of creative differences with the studio, which is already a great sign. And then the poster was released, essentially. And that was like all there was in terms of marketing until the trailer came out. That was like, this movie comes out in like 2 weeks. And it was kind of... It feels like nobody behind the scenes knew what they wanted to do with this movie. And I mean that it shows a lot. But they did test screenings for it. They were very, very unfavorable towards the movie. And then they refused to screen it for critics. And then just kind of dumped it out on Netflix.
Oh man, why would anyone be scared to screen for critics?
I wonder why.
Probably because this movie sucks.
It's really bad.
So bad. Like from the top, I was immediately... Yeah. The movie almost instantly lost me.
Yeah. It just does this extremely forced and poor attempt at establishing themes and meaning to itself by tackling social issues, which the original movie is a very political film, but in a very subtle way. This movie is not subtle, and it feels like it was written by people who are just trying to get brownie points rather than people who actually give a shit, because they just name drop shit constantly throughout this movie, but never develop on it in any meaningful way, and in some ways end up being somewhat inappropriate with how it fits into the ultimate plot.
They also try to, touch on more modern issues in the most tasteless way I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty atrocious.
It's just not good.
It really isn't.
And they try to get you, like, at the start being like, oh, look, we're at a gas station. Remember?
Yeah. And then they go to this ghost town that they're trying to, like, renovate and make some sort of tourist town. And they go to an orphanage, which is where Leatherface is.
Bubba.
And he comes out, and Jo is immediately like, that's not Leatherface.
I was like, there's no way it's him. There's no way they're showing him, like, immediately.
And the orphanage is also clearly designed to be reminiscent of the original house, to the point where, like, we thought it was the original house. It's not actually supposed to be. But it's weird then that they decided to make the interior layout, like, clearly extremely reminiscent of it. So there's no clarity in its presentation, and also as to why the fuck Leatherface is here.
We were so convinced that the random orphanage was the original, like, Sawyer house, that it even had, like, the door that Bubba slams closed. Like, the back, like, the back room door.
Yep. But no, it's not the same house. Which is just immediately so confusing from the point of a Legacy sequel. Which, as Scream 5 does everything better than this movie, Scream 5 does a lot better with how it brings back its iconic location. This one is just continuously confusing in how it presents itself to the audience, both for new viewers and for fans of the series, because there's just no clarity of character and theme, and they rely so heavily on Sally Hardesty without making her in any way a genuine character. And
she's barely in this movie.
Yeah.
She's like
she's
4
in it
scenes.
for like, yeah. And they feel so out of place. She does not feel like a real character in any way.
Anyway, speaking of our quote-unquote real characters, we have a bunch of young millennial entrepreneurs as our main cast, and one of them doesn't even have a name.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah. About the only things that are all right with this movie are Elsie Fisher and Olwen. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce her name. But Olwen Fuere, who plays Sally, Elsie, who plays Lila, the main character. They're both trying their best here with the material they've been given. And the gore is good. There's some fun kills in this, but it's buried under a mountain of really bad decisions and structuring. Like, the first kill is great, but it comes so out of nowhere.
So out of nowhere.
it just like all of a sudden shit starts happening. We're like 20 minutes into the movie, not even, and Leatherface starts killing people.
It's just I almost don't want to go through the plot summary of just how much I fucking did not like. As cool as the gore is and how Leatherface both literally kills a bus.
Yeah.
These characters just don't feel like, I know they're horror movie characters, but there are good horror movie characters out there.
Yeah.
But like the main girl, is it Lila or Leela?
I don't remember how it's pronounced in the movie.
I'm probably gonna switch between the two. Anyway, Leela, she fucking, she's the quiet one. She's the obvious final girl, and she's sitting there in their self-driving Tesla because of course. And so the movie so subtly just drops the fact that she is a survivor of a school shooting by slamming us into a flashback.
Yep. They straight up put you into a flashback of when that happened to her. And it's so pointless and tasteless. I just do not understand at all the thought process of putting that subplot theme into the movie.
Oh, and before they slam us into the flashback, they very subtly show us a zoom in on her phone where she is liking, gun control posts on Instagram, as you do.
Yeah.
It's really making me think that if these kids had this much money to sit in a self-driving Tesla, I feel like they could, like, donate to the causes that they advocate for.
Yeah, they could. They could very well do, actual work towards anything that they seem to advocate for, but they don't.
Yeah, instead they want to renovate a literal dust ball of a town that I honestly, like, thinking about it, like, logistically, like, how this town would actually exist, still makes zero fucking sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, if half the town is abandoned, then how do, like, the 4 people that live there sustain themselves?
They imply that it's, like, there's an actual town that's still, like, around, like, 30 minutes out. And the one guy we see who does live there comes from the gas station. So, somewhere past the gas station is another town with, like, a hospital and an active police station. But it's so strange.
It feels like a movie lot.
Yeah. It's just a prop town. It's just something they built on a studio backlot.
Because, like, one of the 3 people that live there is Bubba, which I think is fucking hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the family name? Did they even give us a fucking family name?
I don't think they did, because it's just the orphanage owner.
Perfect. Anyway, our fun little entrepreneurs make it to this literal nothing town, where they realize the contractor is the guy that they decided to, out of nowhere, just pick a random fucking fight with at the gas station.
Yeah.
He is quite literally just filling up his truck, and just because he has a gun on his side, which, remember, this is Texas, they just decide to start arguing with him at the gas station for no reason. Literally did nothing. It made the main characters so unlikable immediately.
They then do such a weird thing with Lila where she talks to him and, like, gets this interest in his guns that's just so off-putting in how they frame her experience with that throughout this movie. Given her past, it's so, like, it feels like it's implying, you know, the trauma victim has to weaponize the source of their trauma in order to survive in a way that's just so tasteless and poorly done. And then after she has been there for a little while, her older sister comes to get her, and the guy's just lying on his bed, and she went to the bathroom quickly. So they just throw this weird thing in there where now the older sister thinks he had sex with her.
In, like, the 15 minutes that they've been gone.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, Lila and Richter was his name. I'm pretty sure they don't share another scene together for the rest of the movie.
They don't. It's so pointless.
Anyway, well, this weird, vaguely sexual scene of looking at, a AR-15 while we get a fucking out-of-nowhere flashback and then implied but not sex between the two characters. During that time, Dante and Melody are off giving an old woman a heart attack.
Yeah.
Because she had a very ripped up Confederate flag hanging on the orphanage.
Yeah. And they then tell her that she shouldn't be there because the bank took back her house, and she's like, no, I paid them. I still have the lease. And they start telling her that she has to go out and she has to leave, and she starts freaking out a little bit, and then Leatherface appears at the top of the stairs to, like, protect her, and then she has a heart attack. So they immediately have to call the police, who are functionally also the ambulance in this small-ass town, to bring her to the hospital. And Leatherface, of course, takes his surrogate mother, I guess, there. And the characters just don't... They treat this more as a nuisance than anything. Like, one of them feels bad.
Yeah, Melody feels bad, but Dante's just like, fuck that old lady.
Yeah.
Anyway, then a character only ever referred to as Dante's partner.
Yeah.
She decides to hop in the police van to, you know, go make sure she gets to the hospital all right and, you know, update them on the situation. The internet's telling me that her name is Ruth, but I don't believe that. because in both the subtitles and the credits, she is Dante's partner, and her name is never said.
Her name is never once mentioned, but I guess it doesn't matter because the older woman dies in the van, and Leatherface freaks out, takes the one policeman who's in the back with him, breaks his arm so his bone is sticking out.
Fucking
and then
insane.
Stabs the bone into the guy's neck, and then causes the van to crash and kills the other two as well. Before we get the trailer shot of him in the sunflowers, and he starts going back to the town, right as the investors come in a big party bus.
This bus is fucking huge, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Bubba cuts his mom's face off.
Yeah.
There's the mask.
Yep.
Fucking God, just thinking about this movie is so upsetting.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a dumb little auction where they're selling all the abandoned buildings, and then they check, the folder to see if they actually had the lease, because they, just found out the old lady died. So they're like, you have the lease, right? Like, we didn't just kill an old lady. And Dante's like, I'm sure it's here, or I maybe left it at my office at home.
Spoiler alert, they did not have the lease. She did, in fact, have a lease.
Damn, that's crazy. Anyway, Bubba's back and he's fucking pissed.
Yep.
And because Melody had a guilty conscience, she went back in the orphanage for some reason to go find the lease. Which then, Bubba coming back and not liking people in his home. We get a little sense of suspense because Bubba's looking around the house and she's hiding. And then fucking Richter first Dante shows up.
Yeah.
Gets his shit kicked in. And then stumbles out to go get help. That's when Richter finds him. Richter runs into the orphanage, gets his fucking knees bashed in, and then head smashed in, which, no chainsaw yet. But, yeah, that comes immediately after, because apparently Bubba's chainsaw was, just in the wall.
That's where you store your chainsaws.
If Bubba showed up to this orphanage after it's already been established, how the fuck did the chainsaw get in the wall?
He brought it with him.
But how did it get in the wall?
He put it in the wall.
Alright.
You just put it in there. So
where are the rest of the Sawyers?
Dead, I guess? And then the 20-something-year-old Leatherface came here, and she just took him in? So the Melody is able to get under the floorboards and goes through the foundation of the house as Leatherface chases her with the chainsaw from above. And
a fun little reverse shark shot.
Yeah. And Lila gets her out and they run to the bus.
Well, they don't get her out before they cover Melody in poop, which I don't know why that pipe is full of poop, but it's there.
Yeah. So they get to the bus and they tell him to start driving, but Leatherface comes and stops the bus, kills the driver, and then comes in and starts slaughtering everyone.
I literally out loud said it. Wouldn't it be funny if he chainsawed the bus? And then he sticks his chainsaw into the bus.
Yeah.
If I hadn't lost it with this movie already, that definitely secured it.
Yeah.
But honestly, as shitty as this movie is, the bus scene's really good.
It's solid. If it weren't for the forced-in flashback again that comes in the middle of it.
Oh yeah, 'cause bunch of dead people.
Yeah. It's not fun. But there's plenty of people getting just ripped to shreds by the chainsaw.
Some guy threatens to cancel Bubba.
Yeah. And then the one main investor lady tries to crawl out a window, and he comes up behind her and cuts her in half through the window. And the sisters end up in the bathroom and manage to get out.
With the toughest bathroom door of all time.
Literally.
Like, toughest bathroom door on a coach bus.
Yeah. But then Sally comes in.
Because
she's into town.
Because she's in this movie.
Yeah. She got called that by someone. That Leatherface was back, I guess.
She was on the radio.
Yeah.
And it was like, police van went missing. And Sally went to go investigate. And then somehow realized it was Leatherface. I think it's because the mom's face was gone, but, you know.
Yeah. But she's here now. And then she tries to use the girls as bait to fuck up Leatherface, but then fails miserably to actually shoot him when she has a chance. So he walks out and starts to go towards the girls, but then she comes out and does start shooting him and immediately gets her shit wrecked in.
He lifts her up with a chainsaw, but she still manages to live for like 15 more minutes.
Yeah, so she can give Lila a gun.
Theming. It's not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
So Leatherface attacks Melody. Lila is able to partially get the jump on him before Melody is able to get his chainsaw and cuts into him with it, and he falls into this random hole filled with water that's in the middle of this abandoned movie theater. Which, what is this set design? Why is there a hole? Why is it filled with water? But sure. And the girls come out, and it's a new day, and the sun's coming up, and they're joking together as they start the Tesla. And then Melody gets pulled out and decapitated as Lila is taken away in the self-driving car. And
honestly, the most satisfying scene in the whole fucking movie is Melody getting murdered. She was the most fucking annoying character ever.
It comes so suddenly. I was like, is this a dream? And then the movie just ends. So it's like, oh, okay then, sure. It is such a drudging mess of mediocrity and an inability to properly write or structure a story or a movie, and to have any sort of cohesive theming within it, to the point where it just becomes in some ways offensive, and most of the other time an unenjoyable mess of a movie. It fails both as a legacy sequel and as its own thing.
But wait, there's a mid-credit scene. Bubba goes back to the house.
Wow.
Cool, that literally means nothing.
Yeah. clearly they want to make more. I really hope they don't. Just leave it. Just leave it.
I'm also told from what I looked up about this movie, that apparently the creators said this movie can kind of just fit in any universe, which, like, no, it can't. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me that this fits in the original timeline where, I don't know, where the fuck is Chop Top?
Yeah, where any of the other Sawyers.
Did Bubba just leave the orphanage for a little bit? In the mid-'80s, just to, hang out with his brothers? And fall in love with a cute DJ?
Yeah, in the reboot timeline, it doesn't make sense because we already know who took care of him from Texas Chainsaw 2013. And in the remake timeline, it also doesn't make sense because of how the family works in that movie. So it really doesn't fit into any of these timelines, so I guess it's one on its own, but it also is just kind of weird in conjunction with the first movie.
Movie bad.
It's not good. But a much better legacy sequel.
I was so scared for this movie.
Is Scream 5.
I wanted it to be good so bad, and it was. I was so happy. I was so happy that it was good.
Radio Silence did a good job taking Wes Craven's very difficult mantle. But this movie is really solidly written. It's a lot of fun. And just generally a good time that fits in well with the other movies.
And Skeet Ulrich is in it. As a plus.
He is!
Because he's very handsome.
They did their best to make him up to look like himself in the 90s.
Yeah,
they
definitely.
did an all-right job.
They tried the hardest to make him look like he was a 26-year-old playing a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
While being 52.
He does look like a 52-year-old playing a 26-year-old playing a 16-year-old in this movie. Well, luckily he's in 2 scenes, and he's honestly not bad in them, so it works out.
Also, lucky for him, he aged like a fine wine.
He did. But this movie is kind of a satire of the legacy sequels and all of that, while also being one, much like the Scream movies usually are. And it's really good.
I almost don't want to go, because I want people to watch this movie because it is very good. I want everyone to watch every Scream movie.
Yeah.
Because even though 2 and 3 are not good, 1, 4, and 5 are good.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have to go through the plot synopsis. We can kind of just say our general thoughts.
Actually, funny enough, one of the actresses in this movie is in another movie that we watched.
Yep.
And she's honestly really good in both.
Yep. Jenna Ortega is one of the main characters in this movie, and also one of the main characters of X, where she plays 2 pretty different characters. I mean, kind of similar in some ways, but where they ultimately go is much different. Jenna Ortega in this movie is really interesting because, I guess, mild spoilers for this movie, but she's in the opening scene. So, as with every Scream movie, we expect her to die. And, yep, she gets called by Ghostface, who tricks her by initially making it seem like he's her friend texting her, and also films a video of her friend threatening her as well, until eventually shit hits the fan. He comes in, attacks her, she gets stabbed a few times, and then a few scenes later, we find out that she actually did survive. And she is one of the main characters of the movie, which is kind of a surprise subversion by keeping with the Scream formula in a way that is still able to surprise you by having that opening kill where the whole thing in the first movie was the shock of her actually dying because it's Drew Barrymore at her biggest star. And this movie, she actually survives. At least that opening scene. Whether she survives the whole movie, you'll have to watch and find out yourself. But, and the whole movie is kind of based around her and her sister, who comes in. Their mom is on a business trip, and so her sister...
they're rich California kids.
Yeah, of course.
Who live in these giant fucking houses.
So her estranged sister comes and, after finding out what happens, and then has to herself start investigating what exactly happened. And as more murders begin to crop up, getting the help of Dewey Riley, who eventually lets Gale Weathers and Sidney Prescott know, and we get just another really solid movie. A really solid mystery, a lot of great suspenseful scenes. There's plenty of surprises. The two of us did manage to guess the killer. But it was a satisfying reveal still.
It was satisfying because it made sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, I'm always so good at guessing Scream killers.
Yeah.
I did that with the fucking TV show, and I had to wait like 13 episodes each season to get the reveals. Except for season 3, which was like 6 episodes, I think. And that reveal was not satisfying at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So Scream 5 was just a really solid, fun movie. If you were worried about it not being able to live up to Wes Craven's movies, being kind of a too on the nose satire of modern horror movies, or, you know, not properly giving its legacy characters their due, it does all of those very effectively. It's not only just a really solid mystery, thriller, black comedy in its own right, it's also just a very solid sequel, and probably the best of the sequels, honestly.
It also broke my heart.
It did. It does actually take a couple big swings, and they're really well done.
And also, this movie's getting a sequel. Scream 6 is a thing.
Yeah, Scream 6 is a thing. Unfortunately, Neve Campbell is not returning, though, because they did not offer her a amount that she felt was good for what she's brought to the series, which is really unfortunate and sad to hear. So Sidney Prescott will not be returning for Scream 6.
Which is a shame.
It's a real shame. She is the heart of the series. Even in this movie, she's still definitely the heart of the series. It wouldn't be Scream without her. But this movie does also, I think, do a better job than the other ones. Scream 4, especially because Scream 4 does have kind of a similar reboot vibe, of still making its new characters the heart of this plot, the heart of this story. You are following and rooting for the sisters the whole time. But the legacy characters are well integrated, they feel natural into the plot, and Sidney still has plenty to do, along with Gale and Dewey. Unlike Sally in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Which, speaking of which, a much better companion piece to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is X.
I was floored by this movie. I had no idea what it was. Sai just texted me one day being like, hey, I've been wanting to watch this movie. Do you want to watch it with me? And I'm like, sure. I was told, like, oh, it's heavily inspired by Texas Chainsaw, which, as anybody who knows me, is one of my favorite, if not horror movies, if not favorite movies of all time, right next to the original Scream. I read it this knowing nothing, and I was hit by every surprise.
There were at least 2 times that I laughed out loud at Joe's reaction to this movie. It was fantastic. But for a basic plot synopsis, this movie is basically just about a group of people who are going to film a porn in a old couple's farm and in the 80s, and
actually right south. Before the 80s, 79.
Oh yeah, 79.
First of all, the whole porn plot that was the first shock.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this movie about? And then a script gets passed around the van that they're driving in, and I'm like, are they filming like a shitty movie, or are they? And then like the gas station scene happened, and I was like, oh, they're making porn.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Yeah. And you see 2 scenes where they're filming this porn, and you see quite a lot.
The title made the second I found out that they were filming porn in this movie, the title made so much more sense.
Yeah.
I was like, I get it. X like sex and XXX and the X rating, which is only used for porn. Like, that makes sense.
So this movie ends up kind of being a critique of society's views on sexuality, the commodification of sexuality, the brutality and dehumanization of the sex work industry, the porn industry especially, and also just youth in general, comparing the main group to their hosts, the very elderly couple, who interestingly are played by young actors. The older man,
relatively young.
Very, very young for the old woman.
Very young for the old woman. Like 50 for the old man.
Yeah, he's still heavily made up in makeup. But the Martin Henderson plays the old man. He's 47 years old. And Mia Goth plays a dual role in this movie, playing both the pretty much the main character of the
like main girl of the group.
of the group, and she also plays Pearl, the older woman, heavily made up. She's very good in both roles.
I did not realize that it was the same actress until like maybe 45 minutes after watching the movie.
It's showtime!
Thank you for the rate. But yeah, it was just it's a really good time. Like I'm so happy with this movie.
Yeah. It's a slow burn too. It takes about an hour to actually like start getting to the kills where shit actually starts going down. It actually like takes its time building up its themes, its characters and everything before shit finally hits the fan.
God, just like the air of like insecurity every time Pearl is on the screen in the first hour of her just looking at the younger for the majority of the group, except for his name was Wayne, right? He's like 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a line said that like left his wife.
Yeah. Apologies. Martin Henderson plays Wayne. Stephen Uri is who plays the old man. But yeah, Martin Henderson is 47, where the rest of the people in this group are in their in their 20s or younger. Yeah. But Stephen Uri is 64 years old, so a bit older, but definitely not as old as his character is.
Definitely not the World War II vet. World War I and World War II.
Yeah, World War I and World War II. Which, when they come to the estate, they talk about the character Jackson talks to him about it, having himself been a Vietnam War vet. Those two have an interesting relationship after they talk about that. Obviously, just the relation between the two of very old man in 1979 and a younger black man. You can expect how things go there. But also a scene later where Jackson is just standing there full naked,
silhouetted by the moonlight.
Yeah. And you see the silhouette of his penis between his legs.
Bro, his dick is so big.
Joe screamed, "Oh my God." And I don't think I've ever laughed harder.
I mean, like, in hindsight, it makes sense. He's a porn actor, but, like, I just was not ready.
You were not ready for that.
I was not ready for that shot. Like, I'm fine in my movies having full frontal male nudity, but I was not ready for the fucking silhouette. It was so funny.
But yeah, this movie it goes there. It's pretty brutal at points. It's a slow burn. It takes its time. It has really interesting characters. It has interesting, well-developed themes. And yeah, it's just so much better of a companion piece to Texas Chainsaw. I'd still say they're pretty separate movies, but you can see where the inspiration comes.
If I had written this movie, the opening, like the cold open with the cops looking at the like aftermath of everything, or maybe the end scene when we cut back to the cops and they find a camera with tape on it. I was just gonna be like, Chief, what do you think's on this reel? I don't know, some sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then I would have cut to credits.
That would have been great.
This movie's also getting a prequel that comes out in like a month.
Yeah, so the prequel was shot back to back with this in secret. It's called Pearl. It's about the old woman in the movie. Once again played by Mia Goth, now no longer in makeup because this is about her when she was young. And yeah, the trailer looks really good. Looks different from this movie, but still like very stylish and
it stylistically looks very different from the movie that's supposed to take place in the late 70s to a movie that's supposed to take place in like the 50s. I only watched the trailer this morning.
Yeah, it takes place earlier than that. It takes place it would be in the 1910s.
Oh, was this way before? I thought this was after he got back from the war. That's crazy.
I'm pretty sure that it's either before they met or around the time they met or right after he got back from World War I. So this is at least 1910s, maybe 20s.
Yeah, thinking of the ages, that probably makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So this is going to be pretty far back. It's very stylistically different, but it looks really interesting and really good, and I'm excited to see it because this was a blast. It is a movie you kind of have to be prepared for what you're getting from it, but if
Which
you're
I was
into
not.
But if you're into it, it's a great time, and it's genuinely just a really fucking good movie.
God, really thinking about it, I'm such a fucking dumbass because there's a photo of young Pearl, and in my head, I'm like, that kind of looks like. It kind of looks like Mia Goth.
Yeah, because it is.
I'm like, oh, it's because that photo is her. I didn't realize that until like almost an hour after leaving call and finishing the movie.
Yeah. But that's not the weirdest movie we watched.
This movie recommended by me.
Yeah, so this movie was from Joe. I knew what this movie was, though, and I'd been wanting to watch it as well. But Mad God, directed by Phil Tippett, released to Shudder in June. This movie, he started work on this movie 30 years ago, back in the early 90s. And he stopped after Jurassic Park with the explosion of digital effects, CGI, and all of that. He no longer believed that there was probably going to be a place for stop motion. So he stopped, and then 20 years later, with some encouragement and some backing, started work on it again, and worked on it for the past about 10 years. And here it is now. Distributed by Shudder. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. It's a very experimental and artistic stop-motion, adult animated experimental horror, and it's weird and fucked up and kind of great.
It's so I'm so into this movie. Like,
This
oh my god.
Yeah.
It was everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah, this is not a movie you can expect a plot from.
Yeah, zero plot. It is just a sequence of events that just happen.
Yeah. It's kind of something you just got to experience, and then you can think about it a little bit afterwards as to what the meaning of it is. And there's an interconnectedness to it. There's like a semblance to the world, but it's very much not story based.
But like, oh my god, the visuals of this movie are insane. Like, not even with like the gross horror and like post-apocalyptic like scary shit, just how well done everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the whole time watching this, like in my head, I'm like, these are just tiny little sets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the amount of effort and detail that went into every single creature, every single person,
every single penis, every giant pile of shit. There's a lot of penises and a lot of shit in this movie.
Yeah, there are.
And it's kind of funny.
Lot of dicks. Yeah. There's so much effort put into all of it. The stop motion itself is fucking incredible. There's like it flows so seamlessly. There's so much going on screen almost at all times. It's so interestingly and jarringly edited. It's really fucking cool, all the things they did visually with this movie, all the things they did thematically with it.
Yeah, it shows you how good this movie is, of how we're describing it, of there's so much going on screen and so much confusing, like, horrific shit. And Sai and I still managed to walk away from this movie and have a conversation on what we picked up on the themes of this movie.
Yeah, and we were very much, like, in agreement on them, too.
It's... Like, okay, so... this movie's so hard to... Like, there's no spoilers for this movie. It's so hard to describe what even happens.
Mhm.
But like this movie, like afterwards, I wanted to see what the creator said what this movie was, and all I was really given was this movie is a world that is not only abandoned by God but actively attacked by God. So that's why
Yeah.
there's these horrific creatures, and the world's a giant hellscape.
Mhm.
But the way this movie, without, there's quote unquote dialogue, which is just a bunch of gibberish and literal baby noises.
Yeah. A lot
Except
of
for
baby
one,
noises.
one line of spoken English, which is "Oh no," and I fucking giggled at it. I was giggling a lot during this movie.
Yeah. The whole
But
movie is kind of just a general meditation on human greed and hubris and how it destroys us, the future generation, the world we live in, and all of that, the destructive nature of war and the cyclical nature of humans just kind of eating their own tail, building and rebuilding societies and always falling apart again and putting it all on the next generation only for it to all fall apart again. And the also oppressive food of industry and capitalism on from the upper class onto the working class, who are just these faceless people forced to work in literal shit, and crushed without any remorse, um, and often these grotesque creations that are just treated horribly and aren't given humanity or any sort of empathy or humiliation. Yeah, it's very hefty and lofty.
definitely a movie I can see myself watching again.
Yeah.
Because like there are still things that are only like just now hitting me where I'm like, oh, maybe this could be it. Like, oh, maybe
Mhm.
it all takes place in the giant tower that we see at the beginning, because there's like a whole verticality to this movie.
Mhm.
And in one of the sequences, there's one of the soldiers. I think they're called the assassins. I don't know why, but that's what I'm being told.
Yeah, the guys in the hazmat suits who are sent down by the quote unquote last man, who's an actual human we see a few times, sent down into this world, are called the assassins
And
because
yeah,
they're
like
trying to often, at least at the beginning, they're trying to destroy the world. The first one who goes down, it goes down with a bomb to destroy it and just fails.
actually in that sequence we see a bunch of other briefcases piled
Hmm.
up. So it's kind of plays back into the theme of just they're just willing to throw bodies at the problem until it's solved.
Yep.
And like in one of the sequences we get another assassin going down. This one clearly taking place like before the first one we see, because of
Hmm.
how different the like landscapes are. And in one of like almost like one of the levels we get to see this one drive through, because he manages to hotwire a couple of vehicles, which are all World War II vehicles. While he's driving through, there's a literal war zone still happening.
Hmm.
So, like, instead of resolving the issue, they just let those people go to war and they just built on top of them.
Yeah.
This movie's insane.
It is.
But, like, still also, like, so good.
It's really good. It's definitely a movie that it takes a lot of engagement. You got to actively engage with it and think about it and try to understand it on its own personal artistic level. But it's very worth it to watch and think about.
Well, there was another movie that I would have liked to talk about, but somebody hasn't seen it yet.
Oh God. Oh yeah. We can. I'll go see those as soon as I can, and we can do another live episode on those too.
I wanna do an episode on. I definitely want to do an episode on Nope.
Yeah.
Because God, that movie's so fucking good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to go out and see Nope and the Black Phone at some point soon, and next week or the week after, we'll try to come back with another live episode talking about those. Probably more on Nope than the Black Phone, but still.
Honestly, in the week that I still have before I go away for a couple days, I probably could see Nope again and the Black Phone.
Yeah.
Because I do have a friend who hasn't seen it, and he just got a car, and he is the only friend that wanted to go see the Black Phone.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch both. And we'll definitely have to talk about them.
But yeah, guys, just... I don't know what else to say, but just, like, watch horror movies. They're so good.
Yeah. This year has been really good for horror movies so far. Literally the only bad one was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, but every other one has been really fucking good.
Oh god, it's so bad. It's so insanely bad. Like I knew it wasn't gonna be good, but I still managed to be disappointed by it.
Oh god.
He chainsawed a bus.
He did chainsaw a bus, yeah. Oh my goodness. All right, well, I think that's it for us today.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right.
So now let's get you goobers over to where we're heading. Boop. 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 Alrighty, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
All right. See y'all.
And turn this off. And turn